Today we're going to talk about a subject here on this small town that is so vital. This is something like the 18th take I'm doing of this video. I don't know why I'm struggling so much. I don't know why I can't nail it. Maybe it's because there's so much on the line here. And you, as a parent, if you're watching this, you need to take note of everything we cover. I cannot believe what I experienced when I was asked to go to my local high school as an entrepreneur to discuss future career prospects with some of the kids who are in grade 9 over there. And I was shocked. Full disclosure, I'm not a parent. But even though I'm not a parent, doesn't mean I can't feel worry for the kids of today and what they face tomorrow. Two things I brought up with the kids as I spoke to them were artificial intelligence and UBI, which is Universal Basic Income. When I was younger, I'm Generation X, by the way, my parents would implore us to go to university. They were hoping for us to become service professionals because in their minds, that was the most secure work you can get. They kept saying, if you work with your hands, you're at threat of being replaced by a robot. Ironically, it's the service industry that's getting replaced a whole lot faster than blue collars. So none of the kids I spoke with had any idea what UBI was. They had no concept of it. Of course, some of them were a little excited when I told them that basically it's the government giving you money so that you could exist. And it's like, woo, free money, without any idea how free money completely rots your soul and takes away your purpose as a human being. So let's talk about AI real quick, because AI is going to disrupt the future of children, whether they live in a city or whether they live in a small town. But it's going to be infinitely worse for kids in a small town because AI or no AI, there's always been fewer opportunities in a rural region than there is in an urban region. There are fewer jobs and fewer good paying jobs. So what I'm going to do is I want to talk about two examples side by side. Service professional versus blue collar. Both can exist in a small town. All right, so let's look at the service professional first. We're going to use real estate as an example because I happen to work in real estate, not in a conventional way anymore. But I do. And one of the reasons I no longer work in a conventional way is because I see that realtors, for the most part, are going to be wiped out. Why? Well, first of all, service professionals rely on their expertise. So what happens when you have an AI program like ChatGPT, which can scour the internet and call all the best sources of information and wrap them up in one tidy little package? That is the threat being faced by realtors and other service professionals. We are entering an age where you will start to see platforms offering all-in-one services. So I, for one, stepped away from being a conventional agent to doing mere posting. What is mere posting? That is when you get someone who wants to list their home coming to a realtor and saying, can you list my home on the MLS for me? Because only a realtor can put listings up on the multiple listing services. And then what we do is once we publish that person's listing on the MLS, they're on their own, all right? They're in the driver's seat. And one of the reasons this can work for them is they can have tools like ChatGPT, write conditions. They can use ChatGPT to do research. Realtors are no longer necessary. They can, however, act as facilitators. There will always be a position for realtors as facilitators. And there also will always be a role for realtors as negotiators. However, even that is starting to teeter because I have actually run tests and ChatGPT can come up with some pretty good negotiation scripts, but they're not perfect, but they're pretty good. So you see where I'm going with this, right? And it's the same even with lawyers. I mean, you will never see the full-on elimination of lawyers ever. However, you can definitely see how their role can be reduced because people can use ChatGPT to do a lot of the legwork on their own. So that is a threat to service professionals because their expertise is openly available on the web to be scoured by all of this AI. Blue-collar professionals do and do not face the same threat. Someone working in a factory is more at a threat of being replaced because by and large, a lot of what they do is robotic in nature. From the way they move to what they do. And I've worked factory jobs. Typically, you stay within a certain prism. You really don't move around much, whether you're working on a conveyor belt or you're working at a station table. The fact is, you pretty much stay in place. That is easily replaceable. However, if you work as an electrician or a plumber, that's going to take a very, very long time for AI to replace. Here's why. Take example of a plumber. Some houses are exactly the same. If you go to new build neighborhoods, they're all cookie cutter. But the vast majority of homes are very different from one another. Piping layouts are completely unique from one house to the other, and there's always going to be certain angles that need to change the way a plumber approaches a particular problem. Same with electricity. Same with most of these trades. Just angles alone change the game radically between homes. Very hard for AI to build that because AI, for the most part, is not intuitive at all. It cannot say, okay, if my arm can't fit around a pipe this way, then I gotta move and do this or what have you. There are too many variables at play. It would take way too long, especially since programmers are programmers. They're not plumbers, so they can't think like a plumber. They can only think like a programmer. So right now, I would say trades are still one of the best options for you to show your kids. What you're going to have to do as a parent moving forward is you are really going to have to run AI proofing tests for your kids to understand, and also perhaps push them towards entrepreneurship. And even then, as you push them towards entrepreneurship, you need to make sure your kids can run stress tests on a particular business that they do. So right now, I've got two businesses. The real estate business is more in peril than my other business, which is in the food industry. The food industry, yes, you constantly hear about it, how McDonald's might replace workers. That takes us back to the factory example, because McDonald's workers work within a prism, right? They're all within a station, and it is easy to replicate what they do because they essentially pull out these drawers. You'll have a hamburger patty, you'll put it together with your bread. That is easy to replicate. It's very robotic work, right? However, when you have a food business like ours, which is unique, it's not replicated anywhere else. We have a very unique kitchen and we do different things all the time. And that is one thing that is hard for AI to keep up with. And that might put a lot of stress on future kids because they will have to be 10 times more robust than their parents were in terms of innovation and ideation. They have to constantly come up with new ways to outsmart not only their competitors, but AI. It's going to be very tough. It's going to be very challenging. And to be quite honest, I do not envy the kids of today. Now, before we wrap things up, I also find it important that you talk to your kids about UBI, Universal Basic Income, because this is a place where a lot of them will end up in the future. I'm sorry, I know that's bleak, but that's what the title of this video indicated. You have to talk to them about how soul-crushing living on subsistence is, because it's not going to go in a good place. Once the government starts putting people on UBI and basically guaranteeing their lives, it's going to be a sad state of affairs. They're going to lose their sense of purpose. Not only will they lose their sense of purpose, their self-worth will diminish over time. It could lead to a whole range of mental and physical health problems. You do not want your kid to get on UBI. It also opens the door to the government being able to take advantage of them in so many ways because there's going to be so much tied to UBI, especially if it's done through digital ID, which it likely will. So have a talk to your kids about the value of earning your own money. Help your kids consider the entrepreneurial option, but you need to do your research. You need to help your kids figure out what vocation fits their personality while also making sure that it's going to be AI proof. So with all this said, I have created a free group for small town business owners. If you want to join, there's a link to that group in the description of this video. I hope to see you there. Thank you very much for watching. And if you have any further questions, get into the group and we'll talk about it there. See you in the next one.